So what we're going to do is we're here to expose it, let people tell their story, and let everybody in the public see the horrors of the court system in Suffolk County, New York. Hello, I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory. My guest today, Brian denker-youngs. Brian is one of the first, possibly the first, I don't really know, gay divorces here in New York State. Being that gay marriage only became legal a while ago, gay divorces are just starting to come into the system. What he's found out is how broken the court system is here on Long Island, the family law system, and we're going to talk about the specifics in his case, and it highlights a lot of the problems with the court system. But I think, but more specifically, the bias towards men, towards minorities, now towards gay people. We've always said that there's been a bias towards gay men in divorce cases, and I think what we're finding now is that the judges don't know how to deal with it. So rather than make a decision and have it become case law, what they're doing out here is just letting everything just run rampant, and people who are abusing their ex-spouse get away with it because nobody really wants to make a decision. Also, I think what this case shows, according to our next guest, is how sometimes the abuser becomes on the winning side, if there is a winning side in the divorce, and the court sometimes aids in victimizing the victim. So Brian, welcome to our program, and thank you for coming. I know this is something difficult, and I'm sure you didn't want to be sitting on a show talking about getting divorced. But let's just get some background for the guest, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of your case. And I know you wanted to tell the story because, not that you wanted people to see the horror that you're going through, but because you want to fix it and you want to expose some of these judges for what they're doing, and hopefully somebody will look at it and say, hey, these people have to stop it. So the first background, when did you meet your current husband?
So we met almost 7 years ago. Okay. And we had been together for 2.5 years prior to deciding to start discussing marriage. We had been living together for about a year. I had been battling cancer, and we both had respective challenges in our life, and decided, this is kind of something that we, either we make that commitment and kind of make the jump off the cliff and get married.
But it wasn't legal at the time when you were first dating, right? It
wasn't legal here in New York.
Okay, so you were talking about doing it. You were talking about going somewhere else.
We were within months starting to talk about going to Connecticut, and as it so happened, matter of fact, we appeared on National Public Radio. We were interviewed because, based on a decision that came down to the Senate, we were amongst one of the very first couples in the state of New York that actually had a traditional wedding. We had over 200 guests. I believe actually we were the first couple that was issued a license in the town of Huntington that morning. Everyone was in the clerk's office taking numbers who got to process it that morning.
So just to get back, what was the reason? Now, you both wanted to get married, so it wasn't that he was pushing or you were pushing. You had discussions over it. Was it? What was? I'll let you say. What was the reason you wanted to get married? I mean, if you weren't going to have children, or maybe you are, what was the reason you wanted to get married?
It just felt like it was the right thing to do. It made sense. We did talk about having children, and I can't speak for him, only for myself. That it was the first time in my life that there was somebody that it just naturally felt there.
So for the same reasons everybody else wants to get married.
Exactly.
You were hoping to spend the rest of your life together, and you love this person. So how long after it became legal in New York did you actually get married?
4 days.
Okay, so you are one of the first one of the first people. And then I had a question about the ceremony. So this wasn't just something like, hey, we're gonna get married, so it's legal, and you have your benefits and I have my benefits. You did it and announced to the whole world, and you had a big party.
Well, I mean, we essentially had been living together already a year. We had joint bank accounts, joint insurance policies. We were what the state refers to as domiciled together,
Okay.
with an understanding and a contract, I guess verbally. But we had a traditional Jewish ceremony. I mean, I have an $8,000 piece of artwork that's called a ketubah on the wall.
Right.
My husband took a Jewish name. With the intent, if we had children, we would raise them in Jewish faith. We had people were excited. We had friends from London even that flew in for this.
So shortly after you get married, you bought a home together, or did you buy the home previous to the marriage?
We started. A few months later, my husband started to discuss about us buying a home with a pool, and
So you were renting before this? You were in an apartment together?
My husband had owned a home.
Okay, so you were in his
previously.
home. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you did buy a home together after that?
Correct. Well, we had gone into contract on a home a few doors down that wound up being a whole real estate debacle, but eventually, just over a year after being married, we purchased a home in Huntington together.
Okay.
Fixed it up, a home on a little over an acre, with a pool, and just the way we would fix it, because did major renovations and a place to call home.
Right. We're going to get into the reason I'm asking about the home in a little bit further back, but I just wanted a little bit more backup. So now, who filed for divorce?
My husband did.
Okay. And was that a shock to you, or were you having problems?
It was a bit of a shock. Just a little over a year ago, we had been through some, challenges, not between us, but I had health challenges.
Right.
I'd undergone 5 major operations.
Wow, that's a
2
lot
of them,
for a young guy.
Yeah, two of them being spinal surgeries, it's a difficult time to get through. Certainly, battling cancer as well, and a check bounced last summer, and that didn't make sense. I never paid attention, to the bills of the house. My income was directly deposited, and to me, it felt like, that's your spouse. I trusted my spouse,
Right.
that the bills were paid, and I was very wrong. I wound up actually consulting with an attorney and accountant who handed me divorce papers that very day, and I didn't have the heart to sign them, and so
you bounced the check. So you're saying that you thought there was money there that wasn't?
There should have always been.
Right.
I don't.
So was he stealing the money? This is obviously speculation, but was he stealing the money, or was he in married relationships, sometimes somebody would spend all the money on clothing or I don't know what, meals, and you didn't know that the money was gone, or did he actually steal it? Do you believe he stole it?
Based on, and again, this is based on what I've dug through in a year, with no, I've asked the court for help to discover what happened, and still waiting. But what I've discovered is, or suspect, is that he had sizable deferments from his salary, not even coming home, and the rest of his income was being commingled into a separate account with his mother, who just before we got married established living trust. And I guess from what I can determine from my understanding of what I've looked at without professionals, he was basically floating her bills. We were bankrolling her living expenses day to day, and
you didn't know about this?
No, and basically living off of my income, my credit lines, doing unauthorized balance transfers. Days within surgeries would call. I found out, all of a sudden there'd be this mysterious balance transfer of thousands onto, or late payments.
Did he work?
Yes.
Okay, so he worked, and the money, but his money didn't come into the. Well, you didn't know.
I stored deposits. Mine again went direct deposit. Now I've come to find out, getting a rebuild from the bank, that the deposits were medical insurance reimbursement checks being withheld. Checks meant for myself that came through one of the businesses held sometimes for months, or from other accounts would just basically move money, deposit, withdraw, deposit, withdraw.
And you had no reason to suspect anything, so
That's the last thing you ever think.
especially you had just gotten married. I mean, this isn't far into your.
It wasn't even that we just got married.
You've been together, but it's not even,
for years.
But you sort of showed your commitment by getting married. This is like right at this.
It's not something I ever would have expected of him.
Right.
I don't have a reason,
Right.
and I don't know if I'll ever have one.
Right. So okay, so you didn't file for divorce. So then you get served, and
The attorney that I had met with at the time sent him a letter because I had hopes that it was a misunderstanding. I guess he had received. I'm not quite sure if he received service because the affidavit's blank.
okay.
But
So you were through your attorney. You found out that he wanted to.
I did. I had been in California and shortly within a day of returning home suffered a stroke.
Wow.
From the stress of it all.
Yeah, no, that's a stressful situation. Now I understand though that how did it come that you haven't been in the house? So you bought this house maritally. How does and from what I was reading, you even operated your businesses out of this home. How is it that you're not in the home?
I haven't been inside my home since December 11th.
But because you just got up and left, or
No.
I mean, it's your home. How is it that you're not in the home?
In September, one evening about 10:30 at night, sheriff showed up at the door and gave me 5 minutes to leave my home, which made no sense. But I was ordered to an arraignment the very next morning, so I spent the night in my car. Showed up being accused of harassment and my spouse being in fear for his life, which made no sense
Well, it
whatsoever.
doesn't make sense to you, but I've seen this because this is what happens all the time in divorce cases here. That's the golden, we call it the magic bullet to get the person out of the house.
The judge reduced it to a refrain from. I mean, I've even just by size, I'm much smaller than my spouse, and physically I'm not able to actually lift anything more than a gallon of milk because of my rods.
So the refrain from allowed you to go back into the house, just not harass him.
Correct.
So you go home that day after court?
He did not return home and basically showed up sporadically until sometime in November when he would show up, would show up to spend the night, which to me is hard to reconcile with the divorce action.
Well, it sends mixed messages, if nothing else.
And it sent a lot of mixed messages. He one evening showed up and wanted to go back to normalcy, and a light bulb kind of went off to me that this maybe wasn't all him, and in kind of posing a hypothetical of, are you doing this for your mother? I could see and that kind of went off, and it just, he's someone that I think has a lot of internal challenges, and coming from a home that I believe he's been abused his entire life by a woman that believes that God detests homosexuals, and I had not known this until after we had been married, that they were born-again evangelical Christians.
Wow.
Which everybody's got a right to their own faith, but
Right,
a Jew and a boy, you're never on more opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
But I hadn't known about it, and I had no reason not to think otherwise, and I do feel bad for him. I'm sure his life has been difficult, and it's a shame.
Right. So let me just to get back, I'm not really clear on this. So why aren't you in the house now?
I filed an order to show cause during the RJI conference through my attorney. Part of that order was exclusive use and occupancy because I worked from our home. I also had two businesses. The judge had granted him a week to review the order because it was about a sizable motion.
Mm-hmm.
It was adjourned many times, and then on an ex parte cross order, which is what I'd learned, an emergency order filed.
An ex parte means you weren't there.
Right. The judge granted and gave me 48 hours to leave my home, with the trial scheduled for 2 weeks later that had been adjourned more than 7 times that didn't start till April 30th.
Wow.
The hearing finished May 30th, and a month later, unfortunately, I'm still by court order kept from my home, despite just about every cross motion conveyed being established as a lie or misrepresentation to the court on record.
And on top of that, I would think, not reading the papers, but if anybody was going to leave, I mean, listen, it sucks for both of you to have to leave. Nobody's going to be happy, but being that you had the businesses running out of the home, I would think that to me it would be common sense that you would remain in the home.
I had even been asked in November about a roommate's type of setup, which I agreed to, provided that
you two peacefully coexisting, and
provided that we not retire for the evening in the same bedroom. And apparently, I guess my husband had gone before the judge with the attorneys. I wasn't allowed in the courtroom for that, and that was not then, I guess, an acceptable option.
So, people looking at it, they're going to say, well, why not just sell the damn home and split the money and go your own ways?
Unfortunately, and again...
That's a fair question for any, it seems like it's common. Of course, common sense doesn't always happen in court.
Unfortunately, from what I've been able to determine, again, not being an accountant or a professional financial individual, all of the equity in the home's been removed. I have documentation that potentially could be conveyed even prior to having met me as an act of mortgage fraud. Wow. And unfortunately, if that house sells, where it stands is
there's nothing left.
Not a dime, and matter of fact, I'm in bankruptcy court at present, and I don't know how because I didn't use credit cards.
That's crazy. Now, I know you've maintained throughout the past year that this isn't really your typical marital discourse or disgruntled spouse type of situation. Explain that. What do you think by why isn't this just, hey, we're getting divorced and now we hate each other?
I see from...
I mean, people get divorced, they don't like each other.
I see from couples around me, from friends, couples fight, they bicker, they have arguments, they slam doors. That was never our marriage. If I'm guilty of anything, I worked a lot. I worked, many more hours than my husband, but we didn't have arguments like that. The biggest argument probably had to do with disagreements caused by his mother. Okay. And so this whole thing for me still doesn't seem real, and it's very
shocking.
Why is
he so angry?
It's been...
Or is he not angry? He's just trying to take your money.
You know what? He says nothing. I mean, and that's probably the craziest. Say something.
Right.
Although people say saying nothing says everything.
Right.
I, in looking at it, found anti-Semitic and homophobic rhetoric in handwriting with statements such that how to help a homosexual, or gays and homosexuals are creating a new world order with no moral context, or the Jews, God is not done with them yet.
Somebody who married a Jew.
I've even been subjected, I know certainly after we were married, continued berating by my mother-in-law with things like, only the special Jews know the Messiah has come, and sickness and surgeries, you'll only know peace to you except the Lord Jesus Christ. And beneath it all, we're all the same, and so none of this makes sense. I don't know if I was frauded into marriage to have money stolen. I know that a lot of these financial entanglements that don't make sense in transactions started before we were even married legally.
You mentioned fraud just now, and I know that you recently filed a complaint asking to nullify the marriage, claiming that the marriage was a fraud. Explain that.
I don't know what else to think. Certainly representations about his faith, about how children would be raised, to just transacting all these financial transactions. There was an arrest. There was a police investigation by the NYPD that commenced January 2nd over a transaction in a Citibank account that I had with my aunt. That for $400, that I guess as long as you have someone's check, you can steal money from a person. I never knew this, and it was traced routing back to benefiting him. So May 6th, he was taken into custody and arraigned.
So I guess it's not stealing because you're married. It's not stealing. It's fraud. There's got to be something.
It's charges.
Deception.
That charges there were dropped because apparently it doesn't matter. It was hard to prove intent, but just today, for 4 months I've been trying to get a proper police report with the 2nd Precinct. I found fraudulent payees set up, routing to push and pull money out of my family's and my business accounts that I have with my family, and forged checks. Never heard from detectives. I foiled the report that came back and stated I was at Bethpage Federal complaining I couldn't access my account. The officer that took the report, I recognized the last name as being someone that was known as a friend of my husband's. Confirms he's a brother of a friend of my husband's, who my attorney and I filed a complaint with Internal Affairs. The officer Thursday called me saying whatever I needed was to meet me 11 o'clock this morning at the bank. I get a call from the lieutenant of the 2nd Precinct telling me, when you have a chance, come in, we'll give you a report. We're not going to modify the existing one. So, okay, he refused to change. That's not why they were called to the branch. I went and sat at the 2nd Precinct for 2 hours until the desk officer says, well, I spoke to the detective, and, well, enough is enough because, I tomorrow will be at the DA's office and their Bureau for Government Corruption.
Now we've talked, and you said you spent over $100,000 so far in legal fees. You don't have children. You haven't done discovery. You haven't gone to trial. Where'd the $100,000 go?
Good question. To attorneys, legal fees, smoke screen, shenanigans with the court. I mean, you look at the docket. I don't even understand the docket myself. I mean, I'm getting a legal education. But no, you're right. We haven't even done discovery, and unfortunately, given my financial situation, I really need to rely on the Department of Justice and the United States Bankruptcy Trustee to do discovery for me to figure this out.
Now, let's talk about fraud and economic domestic abuse that you're claiming. I know that you're a client of the Suffolk County Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and you've been in touch with other various domestic violence groups. What is the nature of your allegations of domestic abuse?
I hope you can understand there's certain things that I'm not technically allowed or I'm asked by court order not to speak of.
You're saying you are a victim of domestic.
I feel that I have been victimized. I feel, as you started off, this has continued through the court systems by even attorneys, and to be victimized, the victim kind of game. But our systems are broken, and even for people that are subjected, I mean, I feel I'm kind of a tenacious person. I've been able to put pieces together, but what happens to those people that aren't as tenacious? And certainly, I don't know. I know this is new territory to men getting divorced, and it's the same issues. But certainly, I don't know that there's been any sensitivity to any of the fact that we are gay. If nothing, I think it's been made to be almost a laughing game by the courts. And
from reading your papers, that's sort of what I was getting at in my introduction. That whether they're actually laughing aloud or they're just saying, you know what, let these guys figure it out. But meantime, you went for justice and you're not getting it.
I was always raised you tell the truth. I come from family of law enforcement officials, and I was always raised that the courts are a place you respect and you give respect. I've never in my life ever expected. I mean, when you look at some of these response papers and stuff, it's like my jaw drops. I wouldn't. How you come up, and it's almost been like a comic book, and it's like, how is it? How does any of this go on record and not be addressed?
Right. We don't have too much time left. There's a lot of stuff to go through. One of the things I really wanted to get out is I saw that Judge Bavona signed an order to show cause referring your case to Suffolk County District Attorney's Office for investigation. When I asked you about it, you emailed me back that you were, and I'm quoting, forced to withdraw the motion. Tell me who forced you to do it? Who forced you to withdraw this motion?
I was, I want to be sensitive, obviously, to privacy matters, but I was given pretty much the perspective that had I not agreed for the motion to be withdrawn, which was initially in my intent a violation of an order of protection filed with the family court, that I would be proceeding in the matrimonial action pro se.
Meaning representing.
I would be forced
to represent
myself going forward.
Right, which, not knowing the system,
and still trying to figure this all out. Yeah, and it's certainly not fair.
We're getting started again. This is one more thing that I really want to get out. Do you think, because people are going to look at this and go, why is this happening to this guy? To me, if you look at this is simple. They got married. It didn't work out. That sucks. You sell the house, you get the money. If it is shown that he committed fraud, you get a credit, and you guys move on your separate ways. You still have to spend $100,000 in legal fees for this. Do you believe that your ex-husband has any connections to the legal system, to a judge, to the attorneys? Do you believe this? Because there's something going on. And this is your only belief, because you don't know for a fact, of course. So what do you think? You're a smart man.
I've been cautioned by my own counsel about articulating what I feel I have discovered or what I believe exists. Okay. But I will say that we live in the town of Huntington. My estranged spouse is good friends with Frank Petrone. His family is and stems from Huntington and Northport, and is very well connected and friendly with people like Justice Paul Sensar and active members of the fire department. So one could reasonably deduce or tie together that other justices that have political backgrounds in the town of Huntington know my spouse's family.
Right. Now, I mean, you've been going through these health problems, and obviously you just want to move on with your life. It's upsetting what happened. Look into the camera over there, and if you could talk to your husband, what would you tell him right now? You have 30 seconds. Is there anything you would want to tell him?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I know this is upsetting, and listen, I hope for both of you that you can move on with your life. And again, this just highlights the issues that there's so many problems in the court system, and I say stay out of the court system, because it's bad enough for men getting divorced, or anybody getting divorced. It's just horrible. There's a bias towards men. There's definitely a bias. I mean, Judge Marion McNulty was found to be making comments against gay people. A court officer turned her in. If nobody turned her in, this would have been going on forever. How many other people have biases? The courts are supposed to be fair and treat people fairly. This man is entitled, as a human being and legally, to be treated fairly and to get justice in court, and not to be abused by the system. And if nothing else, he shouldn't have had to spend $100,000 and file for bankruptcy to get out of a damn divorce. Let the man go on with his life and earn a living and be a productive member of society. I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us at another edition of Long Island Backstory.